Hi, this is Bobby Halton, and welcome to Trusted Voices, brought to you by Penwell Fire Group. And today we have the distinct pleasure to be visiting with a firefighter who's straight out of Compton. True?
That's true.
True. And the young people will like that clever reference there. And but honestly, we're with the great honor to be visiting with Ernie Mitchell, who's the U.S. Fire Administrator, and who has done an incredible job over the last 5 years of keeping the fire service on an even keel, maintaining our Fire Act funding, helping us to craft our current direction, whether it has to do with firefighter cancer, whether it has to do with firefighter mental health and wellness, strategy and tactics, fire behavior. He's helped us to keep many of the initiatives that we have going in our research and development, and just has been a tremendous advocate for the fire service, and more than an advocate, on Capitol Hill, where the rubber meets the road when it comes to funding, has been an incredible representative and has done a wonderful job for the entire fire service, and really has just been a tremendous credit to the city of Compton, where the chief was born and raised and served as the fire chief, and then later went down to LA.
I left Compton. I was not really born there, but
you weren't born? Okay.
I was raised there.
Okay.
Spent most of my life there. It was the first fire department that I worked for as a firefighter. And I left there to become fire chief in Monrovia, which is about 25, 30 miles north of there in the foothills of the LA basin. And then after 7 years in Monrovia, I left to be fire chief in Pasadena, California.
Oh, okay. And now you're in the hood of Emmitsburg?
Yes, most of the time downtown DC in the district. At FEMA headquarters is where my primary office is.
Okay.
And then, of course, we have the campus, the National Emergency Training Center campus that houses the National Fire Academy and the Emergency Management Institute out in Emmitsburg, Maryland. About a 75-mile drive from one office to the other.
Outstanding. Now, we just spoke briefly a few moments ago with Lou Amabile, and Lou was on the commission that wrote America Burning, which set forth the groundwork for the U.S. Fire Administration and the National Fire Academy. And as the current director of the U.S. Fire Administration, how do you see the fire service right now in terms of its growth, in terms of its robustness in the community? What do you see as some of our challenges and some of our opportunities as our default chief of the American Fire Service?
Well, let me start by saying something about Lou and the commission on America Burning, and that report hit me at a very interesting time. I was just assigned to the Fire Prevention Bureau as a young firefighter when the report came out, and so being a new fire inspector, and here you had this report all about fire prevention. I read the report, and we were following those guidelines, and this was in Compton. And so it was very helpful in some of the prevention work we began doing in the community, things with young children, with public education. And so I have a special kind of place for me with America Burning. And also I've known a couple of the previous fire administrators, but I never thought I'd be working there. So that part I'll say. The current state of America's fire service, in terms of position, I think it's essential and growing in terms of what it brings to the American people. The services demanded and delivered have increased, as we know, from fires to EMS to hazardous materials response to urban search and rescue and all the other technical rescues. And so I see that as an increasing need and an increasing demand, and we see more educated firefighters coming in. We see the use of technology and electronics to give us better data to make evidence-based decisions on and guide us so that we can make efficient use of the limited resources in terms of money. There's just a very dynamic place that the fire service is in today, where change is coming in our environment that we work within, and we are working hard and running fast to keep up and a little bit ahead of that change. I think we've become more unified, which has been necessary. When I say unified, you know, that 30,000 or so fire departments around the country, and then we have various associations, and we have the U.S. Fire Administration and all these pieces. I think we've managed to begin to focus together on where we need to head as a service. And so I just see we're in a great, interesting time with no limit to the challenges in front of us.
I think that's a great overview of where we are. I think, from my experience, my limited time in the fire service, I don't think we've ever been as unified as we are right now in our common understanding of some of our, you know, more critical needs and some of our more critical challenges. And I think we're more open, as you said, to accepting new opportunities to provide services and to provide connection with the community. And I think in many communities, one of the things I saw the other day, which I thought was a fantastic idea, the fire department actually runs a clinic out of one of their main fire stations where they're doing inoculations and immunizations and things of that nature, which really connects them with the people in that neighborhood.
Right.
Because the mom can come down with their kids and the medics come out and they have their records and they're working basically with, I believe it's CDC or one of those federal organizations and connecting right there with the community. So it's a really, really interesting time. I think that we're more open to opportunities than we've ever been.
Yes, I think that, as I mentioned, the demands are changing, and communities need services. And who's there to fill those services? And a lot of times are your local fire department. There's departments, there's stations in many neighborhoods that can interact and engage with the public. For the most part, we're viewed as a vital part to that community, and people like us. We're a trusted group, and so I say there's opportunities for us to even expand on that. So we provide all hazard protection. When I was part of the Los Angeles Chiefs, we had a program we put on called More Than a Fire Department, and that's because you do have that wide variety of things you respond to, and it's like, who do you call when something goes wrong? If it's not a law enforcement issue, we said you call the uh-oh squad, which tends to be us. So we nicknamed ourselves the uh-oh squad, and said that's who calls. And the great thing about firefighters is we'll come and we actually will try our best to adapt to whatever your emergency or situation is and help. And people really respond to that and appreciate that.
You know, there are a couple of things that I want to touch on with you in particular, and one of them obviously is Firefighter Health, which is a very important cause to myself, and I know to you and to many, many other firefighters. The two big ones obviously being our cardiovascular and our cancer. On the cancer side, 10 years ago, you and I visited, I can't remember where we were, we bumped into each other, and we were talking about, you know, the tip of the iceberg, our generation coming of age, and all of our fellow friends and compatriots that have developed cancers, job-related cancers, and it's growing. I mean, I think it's worse than we even thought it was going to be in terms of what it's doing to our brothers and sisters and their health. Are we addressing it from the right perspective in your opinion? I mean, I know we're doing a lot of research, and we're getting a lot of awareness out there, but I still think that we're still behind in our decontamination procedures and our widespread decontamination of our gear, of our apparatus. So I think we're still, you know, we've got some ground to catch up there, and I was just wondering what your opinion is, because you obviously get feedback from everywhere.
I agree with you totally. We are behind in it. But I think one of the great advances in our field now is that we are paying attention to it, and that we're focusing on firefighter health and safety and occupational illnesses. And so the fact that we're actually admitting that we are vulnerable and taking a look at it, it's just that we're very early on with research and ideas of what to do about it, that we aren't sure yet what are all the best things to do, or exactly which specific cancers, well, although we're trying to narrow that down, we need to be able to address and confront in the workplace, and how to do that. There are so many things that are a real part of the job that are very difficult to, let's say, mitigate and do the work itself. And so again, as
how do you pull ceiling and not get dirty?
Yeah, how do we come together on that? How do you, for a long time we thought, well, cancer, if you protect your respiratory system, you're probably okay. But we didn't think about the skin absorption. And so now that's a tougher deal. What do you do, shower after every fire call? What do you do about the soiled bunker gear and uniforms that you wear? How many sets do you need? How do you best protect yourself?
So given all of that, do you think that there's an opportunity within the U.S. Fire Administration to perhaps create, and I know it's tough these days to create new divisions, new positions, but almost a position of a national industrial hygienicist for us? In other words, what we're talking about is what's commonly known as industrial hygiene, and which has been widely accepted in all our NIOSH procedures and all of our industries, where known risks are mitigated as best possible, so that worker safety is there. Do you think there's an opportunity for us to engage that community or bring that community in at your level, I mean at the 30,000 foot level, to help us understand some of this mitigation? Because right now we're really doing it kind of anecdotally and piecemeal, and we've all read the Swedish report, and we're stealing bits and pieces from that. But it'd be nice to see, from my opinion, just some 30,000 foot view over industrial hygiene in the fire service.
I think ideally we have some resources, get some resources dedicated to it. As we know, as we've addressed line of duty deaths, if you will, it took, once we set some goals to reduce those, it took at least 5-6 years to sort of overcome the inertia and see something that looks like it may be a trend and there may be a result, but it was after people had a higher awareness of it and began to look at the numbers and think about ways to reduce the exposures and the deadly activities, if they are, and then some of the medical things as well. In this area, we're creating some data, but then you have opposition that wants, because of the cost of treating and preventing, that says, well, prove it to us a little more. So yes, I think we need resources at a higher end. We, as far as the U.S. Fire Administration, is not resourced really to do that. But but I think there may be ways that we could work together with Health and Human Services, the CDC, and Office of Health, and inside of Department of Homeland Security, to at least have a liaison type of a relationship and see if there's ways to devote more resources to getting a broader base of information. Like again, now in EMS, everyone's talking about evidence-based decisions, data-driven decisions, what are the metrics and all that. So to overcome the obstacles, we need that. It's nice to see that we're starting to collect that. And then, of course, how do we then execute prevention and mitigation? And I think the federal level needs to set the examples. We can't carry it out everywhere for every location and jurisdiction. People may talk about that, but no one wants to necessarily pay for it that way. So jurisdictions will have to make those choices, but at least we can inform, we can gather the information, and we can set some examples for how to move forward.
I like that. I know we're meeting not next week, week after, to talk about cardiac messaging, and I think we've made some great inroads there. And I think you've been a great example. You're very fit. You're athletic. You look like you're 35, 45.
Oh yeah.
You belie your age, which well, you do. You look fantastic.
My kids, they don't say that.
Yeah, well, Trust me, our kids are our best, they're the best mirror of the reality, is what our kids tell us. So I think we're doing some good stuff there, and I think that we're starting to get a better handle on the cardiac issue, which is another very sticky issue. It's not complicated, it's complex.
It is.
It has to do with chemistry and biology and heredity and environment and et cetera, et cetera. So it's a tough issue, thorny issue. But medical aside, from your perspective, what do you think our best opportunity is right now? Where could we? Okay,
I'll borrow a word you just used.
Yeah.
And that would be complex.
Yeah.
Because as soon as we start talking about best, it becomes subjective, right? So because it's best to who. So I think we need to talk priorities, and then say, and then maybe come to some consensus of where do we need to focus 2 or 3 things as our priorities, and then best practices, if you will, best ideas on how to address those priorities. I think we've talked about a couple right now when we talk about health and safety and medical intervention for our firefighters, and that's complex largely because it's so individualized. And while we know there's an ideal way to address it, we also know that one size doesn't fit all and work for all. So I encourage people to, what is the old phrase? Think globally and act locally.
Sure.
So look at what your local circumstances will allow you to do. What's doable? Yes, there's the perfect, but that shouldn't stop us from acting because we can't get to the perfect. And so what's doable that'll make a difference? So if we're talking heart disease, a certain type of medical evaluation and physical, it would be great to do, but if that's not doable for you, are there tests that can identify the heart disease markers that say this medication would be good for you so that you don't have that heart attack? Right. So I think while we have these global conversations, best that then people take personal responsibility, especially fire chiefs, to take action where you are to address the issue.
That's outstanding. I like that. So personal responsibility for your organization, yourself,
exactly,
your community. And you're right, medical issues are very, as we know, individual. But now science, technology can map genomes, and
That's right.
Cancer treatment is very individualized today. And it used to be a patient would get 500 units of this and 500 units of that. Now they might get 320 of this and 465 of that. And so with much better outcomes when we look at the individual.
And even each firefighter can say, this is really a big problem, but what can I do about me that's going to be a benefit to not just looking at me, because we're superhuman, we leap tall buildings in a single bound, and things like that, but what about my family? How do I best take care of me so that I can take care of my family and that I'm there for them? And I think that's essential that we get.
Well, and I think that's the other big initiative today is our whole mental health and wellness and dealing with the issues of mental health in particular, which is very thorny because you start talking about people go through depression, and there are people that are bipolar and people that are autistic and people that have Asperger's, and the world is full of many different varieties of people dealing with things. And I don't like to say people are not mentally healthy, they're just dealing with different mental health issues. So and that's going to be fascinating, because how people, we were speaking earlier about Tedeschi and Calhoun and post-traumatic growth and that whole new science that's coming out, and they talk about the environment. And I think the fire service, as Talib says, there are things that are fragile, resilient, and anti-fragile. They gain from disorder. And I think when we look at those theories out there, there's a lot that the fire service can steal and take and use to grow and create more supportive and more healthy environments for people from the mental health perspective, and the stigma of someone having an issue with something is really eradicating, and I think you've been a great leader in that regard, to having open and frank and straightforward discussions about those things. And the old fire service tradition of going through some traumatic event and then going to the bar was always kind of misconstrued. I think a lot of that was they took the person someplace to talk, and it was the talk that mattered to them, not the drink. And I think people got focused on the drink, thinking it was drinking the problem away, when really a lot of those smarter, older cats knew that, hey kid, let's go have a conversation.
Right.
And it was the conversation, it was the ability to, that cathartic moment where you just discuss your vulnerability and realize that you're not alone,
right,
and start to process it. So I think that, you know, the big health issues and the mental health issues are really being addressed and moving forward. And I want to take this opportunity, just, you know, and I know you've got to run off to another meeting, so I just want to take this opportunity to thank you on behalf of all of us regular, ordinary firefighters out there that, you know, have appreciated your demeanor and your strength and your wisdom and your devotion to duty to come back out of retirement and take time from your family and give to us, you know, your leadership and your wisdom and your guidance and your example. And I think you're a wonderful example. You're going to be a tough act to follow, so I regret the next guy or gal, and big shoes to fill. And you've really, you know, I've appreciated your friendship, but more than that, you know, on behalf of all of us, if we don't get a chance, we can't have a national thank you, you know, Director Mitchell party, but if we could, we would. And you're truly loved and admired, and I hope you know that. And please, if there's ever anything we can do for you, don't hesitate to reach out to all of us.
Well, I thank you for that. I thank you for the invite to talk. And you know, you and I have gotten into these conversations that go on until we run up all the space on someone's tape or whatever we use today to record. And so it is it's great to continue to be connected and involved with the fire service. And I've told people that many times, that you miss the people, and to be, you know, around the people in fire service is in itself a reward to me. And I said it may not look like it, but I'm kind of selfish, and I think a lot of us firefighters, because I see myself as really a regular firefighter, are selfish. And they go, well, what do you mean? I go, well, you know what? It really, I found out after becoming a firefighter that it really feels good to help people and to give to community. And so it may look like I'm doing it for them, but I get a large part back just in doing those things. So this was an opportunity really to help serve the American people at potentially even a bigger way. So there's some self-serving going on there, because the payoff is, it makes me feel good that we can do some things that I can see a payoff for America and America's fire service.
Wow. Well, on behalf of the fire service,
all right,
thank you, Director Mitchell.
Thank you.
It's been an
Thank
honor
you,
and a privilege. I'm Bobby Halton. We've been visiting with the Director of the U.S. Fire Administration, Ernie Mitchell. This is Trusted Voices, and thank you for sharing your time with us.